So, today's vlog, I don't even know what I'm going to talk about because I said I'd do this every day and I didn't realize how hard it was going to be, especially with yesterday was a hard day. When it's really hard to talk about it afterwards. It's really hard to keep talking about all this stuff because it is affecting me in ways that I was not expecting. So I guess today I'll talk about what happened yesterday. And yes, I love my headbands. I am a fan of everything 50s. If I could have a 50s style dress and walk around in it every day and it fit perfect, I would be doing it. The pleated stomach, the hoop, the skirted dress, I don't know what to fucking call it. The kind of like scoops out and a nice coral. I love coral. I have many things that are coral. Um, In fact, my coral nail polish is running out, and I'm getting a little upset because I'm just like, I need my coral. So, that being said, that little blurb, let's get into it. Yesterday, I was in and out of flashbacks all day. It started with Dustin, kind of made its way to Eric, and then Ryan, full circle to where I'm at now, basically, where things are kind of good. But when the flashbacks keep going in these, and it's all messed up, like I'm telling you, like all of it was messed up. It was like the same scenario would then be turned, the same memory, but would then be turned into like a daymare. So I'd get like a flash of the pain and the horrible, and it would go away. And then what I call the daymares. I guess you'd call them like daydreaming, but not the kind you want. um, yeah, okay. So, started off with Dustin and a memory of being in his room. You know, I wish I could say that all of it was awful and horrible and just depraved, but I think that that would kind of defeat the purpose of keeping me quiet if it was that way. He did have glimmers of brotherly love and actually wanting to spend time with me and doing things with me that has made it very difficult in my later years, especially with the flashbacks, because I'll have a flashback of just watching TV, just learning about bark and what you can eat and what you can't, about survival, about there were things that were not absolutely horrible, but they are horrible now. Because when I look back at them, I have this innate pit in my stomach that was like, but he hurt you, and he's going to hurt you. When this memory's over, there's another one following it. And then it, as I stated, moved on to like later experiences that I've had in my life. It moved on to the date rape. When they say there are different kinds of rape, there really is. There's the manipulative in a relationship where you are my girlfriend. This is expected of you. We are going to sleep together, and that's just how it is. That's just it. With one of my boyfriends, it was like that. We do what I want to do. And if I want to fuck you, then that's what I want to do. Yep. But the date rape experience was very, very different than what I was expecting. at this point in my life, I was 17 years old, and I had already gotten drugs. I hit it fairly well, aside from smoking greed. I just didn't really see the point in hiding that. I still don't. I don't see anything wrong with it. It's a flippin' plant that calms you down. Like, it calms you down. Do you know what that's like for someone like me? Where every moment is just flashes of agony. It is nice to have something that calms you down. But when I was 17, I was doing more than just finding things to calm me down. I was finding things to make me numb and make me go away. So I had some experience with the drug scene up to this point. So my ex had called me up and asked if I could come by and talk and shit. So of course, yeah, why not? Like, what's it gonna hurt, right? And I, at this point, had been through so much. This was after I had been sliced across the chest after fighting off someone, and about a month prior to this happening. You probably can't see the scar, but it kind of like loops up like this because of where it was sitting when I moved. Tip for people, in my case, I just couldn't. If I had to let that happen, I would have there would be nothing left of me. There's still very little left of me, but I make the best of it, and I show the world what I have left. So, like I was saying, drug scene, had some experiences, went over to see my ex. I had been feeling pretty confident at that point because I had survived in an encounter and nothing had happened. And I was just like, you know what? I'm a badass bitch. I can do anything. No. Teenagers, you can't do anything. Trust me. Alright, so I get over. He has weed already to smoke, and he shows me the green, and it looks a little off than what I'm used to. Like, it's color consistency, the overall state of it was just like, I don't know. Now, this being said, I recall him smoking it with me. I don't recall anything past smoking the green, or or if it was even that, between that point and when I woke up on a couch naked. I didn't stick around to ask questions. I got the fuck out of there and just kept going. So I had that flashback, and then it kind of homogenized itself with the prior daymare of Dustin and turned it into both of them being there in my daymare, and they had somehow connected and somehow blah blah blah, because my brain will find any line and connect with it. If there is a road to make this make sense, my brain makes it make sense. I've literally woke up in a nightmare. Okay, catch this. Waking up in a nightmare is the worst thing in the fucking world. Okay? Because you go to bed. Okay? I want you to picture this and picture going to bed. So you're going to sleep, and in my case, it's a very hard thing to actually fall asleep easily. When I do fall asleep easily, sometimes it is cause for concern. So in this case, me falling asleep easily was very much a bad thing. Especially yesterday, I decided to take a nap. Worst thing I could have done. So I go to sleep in my dream. I go to sleep, and in my dream I wake up. So in my nap, I had gone to sleep and woken up from my nap and went back to about my day. So I opened up my systems, I started my job. You know, it didn't feel like a nightmare. It felt like reality. I'm just doing my everyday crap. I woke up from a nap, checked on my kid. He still playing his video game, having a grand old time. Gave him a kiss on the forehead, came back in my room, kept doing what I was doing, and heard a knock on the door. I've taught my son that you do not open the door without knowing who it is, and to come get mommy if you get a knock on the door and you don't know who it is. Quite simple. If they won't answer, don't let them in. So, in my nightmare that at the time I did not know was a nightmare, my child woke me up. I went to the door. I mean, I was already awake, but he came in to wake me up even though I was already awake. So I went to the door and I asked who it was. No response. I asked again, and then they said it was the internet company. Now, I had expected not to have them there until days later due to them not showing up before and just a mess of things. Now, I figured that when I last called the internet company that they said, okay, yeah, we'll get someone out there as soon as possible. And I guess they must have somehow got someone there as soon as possible. And I didn't recognize the voice right away. So I opened the door and there stood Eric. And I was like, okay, well, I guess you work for this internet company now. Cool. Great. Can you set it up and get the F out of my apartment? Because I honestly assumed that, it's possible and people change, and no matter how degraded and awful they are, that there's the possibility that they could be something more. Maybe. Anyway. So he says that he's not there to set up the internet, and he's holding my apartment door open. And my immediate reaction is, get out. Don't hold my door open. Get the F out. And of course, I am met with laughter and ass. Like, ain't happening. So, in comes Dustin in my nightmare as well. Thanks, me, for inviting them in. My son is still sitting on the couch at this point, asking who these people are, and I have told him to go to his room in the most aggressive manner that I could think of. And yes, I did make my kid cry in my nightmare. I made him go to his room. He assumed it was for quiet time and just eventually fell silent. I'm still in my living room with them standing in front of me. I need you to understand that I'm looking through my own eyes during this whole experience. This is not, I see myself, I see my kid, and I see these people. No, this is legitimately, I was looking at them. So, I'm having this nightmare that I don't know is a nightmare, and my heart is racing, and I'm sweating, and I'm like, okay, they're inside. I am one person. I have no weapons on me. What am I going to do? I recall where my cell phone is, so I need to make an excuse. I need to find a way back into my room, back to where the phone calls are, back to where my phone is, so even if I can't get a hold of my phone, that someone calling in is gonna hear it. He's gonna hear that there's something wrong, that there's something going on. At least this was my thought process. So, Dustin's the first one to talk. He says that we need to sit down and catch up, and somehow knew that I hung out in my bedroom with my friends. And that's what I do. I have a sitting area, and like we chat, we have like conversations, like make jokes, listen to music, and my son gets to have the living room so he can play his video games and watch his movies and stuff without being interrupted. So somehow he knew this. And now logically thinking that back to this, that should have been my brain's pinpoint to say, hey, is this real? Is this happening? How could have they known something like that? But logic kind of goes out the window when you're having these nightmares. It's like your body is like, yeah, fuck that. You're going to go through this and because you got to. I'm not going to, don't know why. No particular reason. Just do it. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe this is an opportunity either way because my phone is in there and I'll dart for it one way or another. Before going into the room though, I very, very clearly say to get out, and I'm met with laughter once again of the sinister kind, which is just, so he tells Eric to grab me and drag me into the room. I've got my arms in a buckled position, so I guess is the way I put it. So my wrists are still kind of free, but I'm being held back like this. Uh, Pointing something out, held by the wrists actually gives you a little bit more mobility. It's easier to run to because you could almost get out of the grips of the hands that way. When you're being held here, now, none of this shit ever happened to me in real life, but in my nightmares, it's been so vivid and so realistic, and I can feel each thing happen that I actually believe it's happening. I've had a nightmare where I've had my hand put in boiling oil, where I've actually felt it sting first and then just raging pain going through my whole entire body, and I could smell the flesh burning on my hand. This is what my brain does to me. So when I say that I have realistic dreams, I really do. I have realistic nightmares to the point where I'm honestly wondering if I've just gone completely bonkers. So anyway, when you're held in this area by behind, they have full grip of your arm. Okay, whoever it is, like in my nightmare, it was Eric, had the ability to keep me in place and in a little bit more of a painful position for walking because there's no getting out of that. Okay, think about it. So the most that I could have done would be a judo flip, which is actually something I considered in the nightmare. Was just like, okay, he's behind me, he's holding me like this. What if I bolt forward, use my elbows, and flip him? So following this whole concept, I actually tried to do so in my nightmare and failed horribly. It almost worked, kind of not. So we get to my room, and I am pushed inside. They comment on how messy it is, and it is. My room's a mess. I have a psychology textbook open on a couple pages on my floor, a couple shoes here and there, mostly clothes though. So they're commenting on that. And I see my phone. And Eric's grip loosens, and I dart, and I go for it. I get stopped, obviously, this time by Dustin. He grips. I don't know if pull is the right word. So, like, I can only feel it, okay? Pull would be more of a, I guess. I'm thinking it was more like, it felt more like a grip and pulled back onto my feet by my hair. And then his hand went around my neck. I can do this. I'm doing it. I'm talking about it. Woot! these things are actually working, sort of. Yay. Ish. Alright, so I'm back on my feet. I am facing my bed, and my bed goes this way. This way, and my door is this way. So there's not really much room in the sense. So Eric brushes off one of the chairs, removes the stuff that I have on it, and sits on it. I can see him in my peripheral vision in this nightmare where he's just kind of, he's still there, but he's not really there. Okay? So all these things, as you are probably aware, are still indeed part of a nightmare. That is exactly what it is. I am still having a nightmare. Excuse me a moment while I take my crazy pills. These are supposed to help. They do with my nightmares, but they don't really so much with the flash. And you know, after the last nightmare I had, I kind of need to sleep. Flashbacks are one thing, but these are difficult. So I'm in my room. I can feel his breath on my skin. And he's just kind of like, it's static and silent and tense for a moment. And the first thing he says to me is to give him my phone. So I do. He whispers in my ear, now we're going to sit down and you're going to get off your computer and tell your work that an emergency happened. I am feeling very intimidated at this point. He is, in all senses of the word, overwhelming me with his body as I'm in this area. I am so close to my window that I can hear people talking on the outside and wishing that I could just scream out. I want to. I'm not really entirely sure what all was holding me back. So I sit down on my bed, and after he releases me, with him following me as I sit. He sits behind me. I have an issue with people being behind me because the last time me and Dustin talked, we had our last conversation, as it were. Now, when people are behind me, it's very hard for me. Granted, I have gotten better. My boyfriend has been fantastic with helping with that. He slowly, lets me know that he's there, and then will put his hand on my shoulder or hug me or try to show me that I'm okay. Anyway, so what was I saying? Yeah. So he sits behind me and kind of wraps himself, and he wraps his hands around my neck, and I can hear Eric laughing in the background. And he just says, I'll even be nice if you do as you're told. So I log out of my systems. I feel faint. I black out in the nightmare. And I wake up in reality. Yep. And then back into another flashback. And in and out, and in and out, and in and out. And then I had to work. So work while you're having flashbacks in and out and your medication isn't working and cream's not working and nothing is keeping your brain from going fucking erratic. It is so difficult to work. I mean, last night, like, I had a flashback while on a call, and I just had to get my shit together just to get it done. It's hard sometimes. Anyway, bye everybody. Don't know who listens.